Well, welcome back to Hey, it's the Luskos.
Hello.
It's the Luskos. Here we are. We're glad you're here. Hi, Jennie.
Hi.
You doing good?
Yes.
You doing good? See, you come here often? It's the end of January.
I do come here often.
It's the end of January where we've made it. Another year, another couple episodes.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It is good that we are here.
Older, wiser, better, stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3 continues to unfold in all of its majesty and splendor. And this week is week 3 of a very special episode in store for all of you, but especially
you.
Those of you
there
who are in America and love America's music.
Oh, what is America's favorite music?
Western music, Jennifer. How do you feel about country music?
I feel like I've heard some good country music as of late.
Okay.
However, it's not my number one favorite. However, it was at a time
a lot of howevers.
When I had a crush on a guy who was a cowboy when I was in middle school, and I tried to learn all the country music I could to kind of show him that I did like it, but I really didn't.
The truth comes out.
But my favorite song out of that period of my life was Strawberry Wine.
Okay. Wow.
Strawberry Wine, 17. That's all I remember.
I am so glad we brought this up. Well, Jennie, then your seventh grade self, your seventh grade swooning heart is going to be so excited because today, embedded within our 3rd season of Hey, it's the Luskos, we are still celebrating for 7 weeks long, a magnificent 7 series of episodes that in some way or another connects back to themes that we touch on in the new book, The Last Supper on the Moon, which we are just so excited that is finally out there, talking about inner space, talking about outer space, and the connections with our next guest are astronomical. Now, you didn't get to listen to this conversation.
Nope.
I would even say you weren't privy to this conversation.
Nope. I was booted out of this
we were going to have 2-on-2. Amber and you were going to be part of it, but then we decided just the last minute, some technical stuff was happening. Granger and I were like, let's just have it just be us two dudes. And then next time we get together, we'll do that with do it with the 4 of us.
Yeah.
But Granger and Amber are a special couple. Granger in this conversation is very vulnerable and raw, especially when it comes to something that he and I both have in common, that we both, all 4 of us have in common, of course, and that is that we have babies in heaven. But he is just unbelievable. I mean, this guy, 23 million views on one of his music videos, and all the outrageous awards he's received, BMI Awards, iHeartRadio Music Award, CMT Music Awards. He won the best quarantine song for Don't Cough on Me, which is just my favorite thing I've ever seen written down.
That's great.
Backroad song off of Remington has over 110 million streams on Spotify.
Sheesh.
Jennie, I didn't stutter. I said 110 million.
Well, you first said 100 million.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. But all these records, and what I love about this, especially if you're an aspiring musician or you have any kind of creative process that you're working on in your life, is he really unpacks, as we talk through his chronology a little bit, what that in reality looked like versus what you might think a meteoric rise as he has had indeed looked like, as well as what has kept him grounded in the middle of his success. And, first time Granger walked into the doors of our church, he walked in with his brother. He walked in on a Sunday morning. He was on a tour, stopped and wanted to walk into our church with his bro. So what he talks about, he really lives out. And I'm really grateful for Granger, and just an incredible heart. And we heard about your love. I will say I have softened. I used to really not like country music, but I would listen to Johnny Cash here and, some Hank Williams here. And I got to just be honest with you. Maybe it's 15 years in Montana. This old boy's got a little heart that's got a sympathetic side to some country music. So anyhow, but I'll tell you what, I am a fan of Granger Smith and his alter ego as well, Earl Dribbles Jr.
It's a great name.
So if you hang to the end, you'll see some connections to the moon and including the announcement of a film project that he is going to be starring in that has moon in the title, and the fact that he spends his nights doing something very secret on the radio. You might say he moonlights. We get to that at the end of the conversation.
Wow, that's really great. Well, I'm excited for this, and I'm excited for you to hear this. So lean in, listen up.
We got a great episode coming up next week. I can't tell you about it because it's still secret, but it's going to be awesome sauce. So, not you, you know. They don't know. Well, thanks again for subscribing, listening, and being on this journey with us. I really do love you, and it means a lot that you would spend some of your time with us Luskos. So, without further ado, here's Granger Smith. Well, Granger Smith, welcome to Hate's Luskos.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
It is such a joy. We were going to have our wives. We were going to have a double date, but our double date turned into a bro date, and here we are. But it's awesome. We get to hang out a little bit, and then it just leaves us with something to look forward to when Amber and Jennie can join.
Yeah, good excuse to have them back another time.
That's right. We virtually guarantees. It's my sneaky way to virtually guarantee we get to hang out a little more, get to bother you one more time at the very least. Well, I'm really grateful for the short journey that we've been in communication and that God kind of connected our paths. And it is a really special thing to have you have a conversation with you today. So
thanks, brother. I feel like this is the beginning of something.
That's right. That's right. And you're also, out of all the very interesting human beings we've had on this program, the very first country Western artist. If you are willing to be under that label. I know that we don't label anybody, but
yeah, I'll take it. I've been under that label for a long time, for sometimes lack of a better term, and but yeah, I'll take it,
because no one label can fully encompass any human being. You know, you're of course more than a radio host, a actor, a father, a husband, a singer, performer, songwriter. You're also a human being, child of God, and probably 1,000 other things you get to do, but who you are is not able to be defined by just one thing. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, child of God, husband, and father are the most important.
Yeah, there you go. And you got to know that, because you could easily in life end up doing so many things but losing at the most important stuff, huh?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Now, let's just go back to the beginning a little bit. I understand you began playing the guitar, taught yourself the guitar. You started singing very young, right?
Yeah, 14 years old, I started playing guitar, and that originally came from seeing some other friends that played and sang, and the girls really liked those guys. They gave those guys a lot of attention, and I thought, man, those guys are so cool. The girls really think they're so neat, to play guitar. So my grandmother had one in the closet that she gave me a long time before that. And I pulled it out of the closet, and it was this case with a chord chart of where to put your fingers. And I just sat there, and I just remember just from the very beginning pulling out that guitar. I just loved it. I loved what I could do with it. And I loved, matching my fingers up to what the little piece of paper said and how to do it. And then soon after that, started singing along with the songs that I was learning.
Oh my gosh. So did you go to the Five and Dime, and you and the guys from school started a band? It was the summer of '69. This feels very much like a song here. Played it till your fingers bled.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible music during those days. But yes.
And what sort of songs were you emulating?
Yeah, back then it was country music. It was George Strait, Alan Jackson. Listened to those guys a lot, and then really got into George Strait, became a member of his fan club. And when I got a driver's license, I would drive and go to concerts by myself. And because I was in the fan club, I got to be on the second row. I would travel around in Texas and watch him play, and just loved it. At that point, I just wanted to be part of any of that. The road crew, the lighting crew, the audio guys, anything. I just wanted to be in that traveling circus.
Wow. So it was initially, I got to get some girls to like me, but then you kind of figured out pretty quick you had a knack for it, because obviously there's got to be some talent to rub up against that hard work, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say that, because during the time, well, like when I was in junior high and early high school playing guitar and singing, out of my friends group, I was like the fourth or fifth best guy of the six guys that were playing. You know,
of the six, you were fourth or fifth,
and I was fourth or fifth, and that's been the story of my life for a long time with a lot of things that I've done. But I just did it longer than all of them, and I fell in love with it. I was so passionate about music, and the irony is, I learned to play to try to get girls to like me. But once I loved to play, I didn't care as much about girls anymore.
That's so funny. Oh, man. And what does being in the George Strait fan club entail exactly, besides access to the second row seating section?
Yeah, this was back in the 90s. And so it was all mail in. So it was before you go online and sign up. So it was like mail in and send the, $15 or whatever it was. And you send it in and they send you back some like exclusive memorabilia. And then the access to the tickets was the most important thing to me.
Now, did you ever get to meet George Strait in that period?
No, I didn't. I didn't meet him till recently, really. Wow. And I became friends with his son, but I didn't know him at all back then.
And did you get to tell him about the fact that you were in his fan club?
Old George, I didn't want to burden him with the same story he's probably heard thousands and thousands of times, so I didn't mention it. His son knows that though. But
I mean, with what you've done and the lane you've blazed within the country music world, I mean, I'm sure that would be touching for him to know that. I mean, I would think that. I mean, maybe he hears it so often it's old hat to him, but I would imagine it would be a sense of like, man, I passed the baton on in a pretty significant way. In that sense of, I've got kind of. I mean, you're standing on his shoulders in that way, right?
Yeah, I think you're right on, and I think the same thing. And I guess what's crazy is that what I learned from George and my passion for following him and following his music was I was able to understand better the fans that follow me through that. And that's probably the most important thing I got out of that all that fandom I had as a teenager was emulating, understanding, and empathizing with the fans that are now doing that to me. And it's, I could always look at him and go, I remember this. I remember that look. I remember that hand that just wants to try to get a guitar pick on the front row. I remember that. I remember what it means.
That's huge. So what do you feel like that has shifted or changed in maybe some little things that you do, and because with your fan base, with the people who look up to you in that same way, the young, Granger Smiths out there with their crappy guitar playing till their fingers bleed, kind of is there anything, or have there been some memorable moments where you've been able to kind of make a difference in someone's life?
It definitely reminds me, because I think about it a lot. And it reminds me to slow down with them and to single them out, like whether I'm playing a song and I see, and if I could make eye contact with someone and hold that eye contact longer than a normal glance. And it's like, it's almost an awkward link that I could hold an eye contact as if I'm telling them through my eyes, I'm here with you.
Yeah, wow.
Like this song, I'm singing these lyrics with you right now, and no one else matters around you. And I preach that to my band all the time. And this is something that didn't start till later years in our touring, when we realized that there's only so many shows we could play and enjoy each other's company and play our songs and feel the energy from the crowd. There's only so many times you could do that before it doesn't matter anymore, really. To you, it's hard to get motivated to do the same thing, until we realized quickly that by singling people out and by trying to play to the individual instead of the crowd, instead of playing to a number of people, we're playing for the one. And so we get together before every show and we huddle up and we say a prayer, and through that prayer and through our own huddle, we'll say, let's look for the one. Let's look for the one. Someone came here tonight to forget about something they're dealing with, or to remember something they just want to feel again. And let's find that person. And when I had that mentality, I could see them. I could see their eyes. I could see the glassy eyes, or the posture that they have in the crowd, that they're here because they want to lose themselves in the music, or they're here maybe because their brother that passed away and this was his favorite band. And so now they're here to feel that again with their brother. And it's when I look at it that way, it's a big responsibility that I accept, and it also keeps me going. It makes me go back after the show and realize it mattered tonight. It wasn't just a date in Ohio. This show mattered, and that keeps me going.
Bro, that's beautiful. And that's inspiring for all of us on every different level, just to remember the humanity and the empathy and how much kindness makes a difference. And we've all had people that we looked up to who took a moment with us, and the opposite of that. And that's really important. And I think it's cool to see that, like, on the other side of that, it's inspiring. Now, when you were the fourth or the fifth of the six, and you're like, man, I'm gonna have to work hard because I may not have the same talent as these others do. What was that journey like? I mean, from there to, I know at 19 is when you signed a record label.
No, I signed a publishing deal at 19 and moved to Nashville for a short bit and just wrote songs, and then moved back to Texas to start a band at about age 24. Didn't sign a record deal till 34.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there was some serious reps put in during your overnight success, before your overnight success came, which is of course how it always works. Like, wow, you just popped up out of nowhere. It's like, yeah, surprised me because I've been grinding for 15 years, Yeah, so
exactly.
From 14 to 34 is a 20-year long period. Did you go to normal high school, or did you pursue music all throughout? What did that look like?
I went to high school and probably focused more on high school football than I did music, and sang. Saturday nights they had these Opries in North Texas. We'd go sing a couple songs at a local Opry, and then it wasn't until college I went to Texas A&M that I actually made my own band, and we started going to music venues and playing my own songs. So that was a big deal. And that's what got the publishing deal for me. And then when I moved back from Nashville to Texas, finished school at A&M, and then once I started a band there, that began what is the beginning of the touring we do now.
And so a little bit of the chicken and egg on that, the songwriting success, so to speak, came before singing.
Yes. And success is a loose term when it comes to that, but it really, writing my own songs, learning the craft of writing through a lot of mentors there in Nashville helped me tremendously in understanding the craft of songwriting itself and how to think about a song and where to find ideas. And I've used that ever since those days. And so, but during that time, I craved being able to play those songs live instead of cover songs.
Interesting. Because there are artists and musicians who don't, right? Like they rely more on songwriters, right? And they just kind of are the performance side of it. And then there's vice versa. There probably are songwriters who don't get out on platform as much.
Yeah.
But you always kind of wanted the symbiotic relationship of both of those things.
I did. I wanted to write a lyric and then get a reaction from the lyric to see if anyone could relate to it or if anyone liked it. And so it was hard to write songs and then put them aside and go on a stage and sing someone else's songs.
Interesting. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And I want to pick more back on the creative process because I think that's a fascinating conversation. But I find a similar, I love writing, I love books, but then there is something about, you don't get to, when you write a book, you don't get to be there when someone's in there. I mean, you hear a tweet from them or they DM you or leave a comment saying how much it helped them or whatever, but then you don't get to watch the look on their face where when you're preaching, or like for you, when you're in a concert, you get to see literally the response to that thing that was birthed in your soul that God gave you now touching somebody, Oh
yeah, absolutely. You get that instant reaction. I call it the mowing the grass ideas where when you mow the grass, you look back and there it is. There's that stripe, that mark that you just did. I did that. And you can go and sit down on the porch and look at the grass and go, I just did that and it's great. But so many times you could write a song or a book and you just sit there and months and months and months go by and you're waiting and it's going through promotions and you're going through the logistics of everything and you don't get any reaction from it from the people that you wrote it for. And it's harder that way.
It's a little bit of a message in a bottle and you just have to sort of trust that God's going to send it out on the wind and the waves and it's going to get to the people who need to get there. And I guess there's power in both ways.
absolutely. We need both ways for sure.
Mm. Now the craft and the artistry, and I've heard Jerry Seinfeld talk about how it's unglamorous. It's that hard work. It's do it, put the time in every day, and don't ask the question, was it good? Just keep. And then I think there's also those moments when it's the lightning strikes and there's the epiphany kind of moments. And for me, there's the sermon that I write in 12 minutes without even thinking about it, because it's like I can hardly write fast enough. And then there's the week where it's like up until Sunday morning at 8:30, I'm like, dear Lord, are you even there? I mean, I'm reading this Bible, none of it makes any sense to me, So I imagine with regarding the songs that you've written, are there some that you can think of that it's like they almost wrote themselves, and others that you really had to just work and work and work?
Oh yeah, I've seen what Seinfeld said. I've seen all of it. I've seen the songs that, man, I wrote this in one night, and it's better than the last 10 songs I wrote. And then I have songs, and I still to this day will finish a song that I would start 7 years ago, and I'll take pieces of it and go, oh, I know how to finish that song now. There it is, and they're all on my voice memos and my notes on my iPhone. So I'll just go through those and finish songs, but sometimes it just takes a long time. I've been preaching lately, and it takes me a month to write a sermon. And I'll tell Amber, my wife, she's like, gosh, how's it going? And I'm like, I have to finish it because guys like Levi, they have to do it in 5 days, and I can't, they don't have a month like I do. So yeah, I don't see how you guys do it in 5 days.
Well, I can't wait to hear you preach and have you preach at our church, because that will be amazing. But I think we all look at each other and go, how can you do what you do? I think, but remembering we've all been given our own graces is really the key there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, because the thought of playing a guitar and singing in front, I just would wet myself right then and there, in remembering all the words and goodness.
I doubt that. I doubt that. I think your church would agree with me that if you did, you would have all the components to do it.
Come on, too kind. Okay, so now you're, when did you begin to really see proof of concept? You've been putting all the work in, of course, songwriting a little bit, but when did it really start to click? To where you're like, was there a lucid moment where you kind of realized like, okay, I really am in my slipstream, that the Holy Spirit has for me. This is something. I'm not just, wasting my life here at this dream of music.
Yeah, there are probably, and I'm sure you could say the same thing for you in your life, but there's 5 or 6 or 7 of those kind of moments. And there's so many pieces of my life and my career. It's like playing a big game of Jenga. It's like all these blocks, and they all stack on top of each other. And some of the blocks are complete failures and misses and mess ups. And some of them are small victories. And some of them, you didn't even know what it was. It was just a block, but it mattered in the end. And so when you get all the way to the top, and there's things that are not the top, but where we are now, there's things that you take out one block. It could be one failure or one mess up or one small victory. You take it out and the whole tower falls because they were resting on every block that you've built. And so these moments I've had, the record deal was one. We had an album in 2013 that led to the record deal. That was our first national success, where we can go out of Texas and pack these little places out in towns that I'd never been to, in states that I'd never seen. And so that was a big moment. There was a moment when I wrote a song for my school, Texas A&M, in 2006, and it was called "We Bleed Maroon." And I didn't think anything of it. I talked to
We Bleed Maroon.
It's called "We Bleed Maroon." And I remember talking to a local artist, and he was a painter in town in College Station, Texas. And he came to one of my shows. No one came to my shows at this time. Nobody. And he said, "Man, you and your band, I love watching you guys, and I wish you had more success." And of course, I would play it off and go, "Well, we're having fun, and we're learning a lot. We're learning how to tour, learning how to get our chops up." And he said, "Can I tell you some advice that helped me as an artist?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "When I give back to the community that's providing for me, I always see that come back, and I see it manifest tenfold for me." Mm. And I said, "Well, what's an example?" And he said, "I'll give you an example. I just went to the convenience store, and there's a pickle jar that says, I still remember this story. It said, "Help Mindy walk," and it said that there's this girl and she was in a car accident, and she's in a wheelchair and she's trying to walk across the stage for graduation, but she needed a special surgery, so they were trying to raise money to help Mindy walk. And he's like, "You could start there. Contact the people with Mindy and see if you could play a benefit concert." And I was like, great. So I did just that. I did exactly what he said. And no one returned my call.
You called Mindy's family from the pickle jar and they didn't return your call?
Nobody returned my calls. And so I thought, what was that bad advice, or is this the wrong situation? So I continued to think about what that meant for me. And I remember one day driving into town, and I thought, the most I know about in my little life is this town and this college. I know a lot about it. I could write a song. So I wrote a song called "We Bleed Maroon," and they have this special event every year called Aggie Muster in April. I wrote the song, I recorded it, just me and my guitar, and I went to the website, Aggie Muster, and I sent them this song, and I said, "You don't know who I am. My name is Granger, but you might like this song, and if you want to use it, it's yours. I want to give back to the community that provides me with a stage." And they didn't reply. No one replied there either.
Stop it.
And I thought, what in the world? I'm just failing at everything. And the next day I was driving around and that song, that version came on the radio.
But they never called you.
They never called me. And I just thought, funny. What in the world? So I did a U-turn. I went back. I called the radio station as I did the U-turn. I said, hold on to that song. I'm the guy that sings it. I could record with the whole band. We'll get you a version.
A better version.
Literally called the band, and they came in and I gave it to the radio station. And that was the first time when people would come to me and go, you gave us a song with what we've always felt, but weren't able to say. And I was like, wow, that's something. And I felt good about that. I felt like when I laid my head down on the pillow at night, I did something that mattered, and it mattered. And it wasn't about any kind of chart success or album sales. It was people were hearing it and relating it to their dad or their granddad or their mother, and it mattered to me.
That is really profound, Granger. And I think for every one of us, that's the shift that has to happen on the inside, where we're not trying to build our own kingdom, but we're building the kingdom. We're looking around, yes. We're seeing others. And it's funny how much bigger our lives can be when we become, as Emerson said, smaller in it. And
yes,
that's that generosity that unlocks that greatness. And what age would that have been? You were early 20s?
I was 25-ish, something like that. Yep.
And were you married yet?
No. I met Amber about 4 years after that.
Okay. So that shift was one of those 5 or 6 big kind of developmental Jenga moments for you. In yes. my book, I kind of call those backside of the moon moments, where we all have backsides to our moon. We don't want to let other people see them, but they actually make us who we are, and so being willing to expose those things, let God use those things. And it's just really powerful. Would you be willing to share maybe 1 or 2 other of those kind of seismic timeline altering moments for your journey?
Yeah. So there was the first time when I signed a record deal, we put out a single, and that single had a lot of national success. It went number 1 in country music. And so that...
Which single was that one?
It was called Back Road Song.
Oh, well, yes. Okay. That's everyone knows that song.
It opened up a lot of doors for me, and I was introduced to a lot of stages that I wouldn't have had that opportunity without that song. But once again, playing the game of Jenga, there's that, and there's these stages that Back Road Song got me on, but it falls if you take out We Bleed Maroon, and it falls if you take out the trip to Nashville and learning the songwriting process.
Oh, so that's so dang good. So you're saying the person out there who's going, I want to write my Back Road Song. It's like, but are you willing to write We Bleed Maroon?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes.
How much do we miss because we're striving for the grand, but forgetting about the blocking and tackling of like what's in front of you today?
Yeah, that's so good.
Wow. Now, did you have the clarity of that in the moment, or was that something you can only kind of see in rearview mirror?
Man, I think it's got to be. I think it's a rearview mirror thing. I was collecting that kind of clarity as I was going, but I still didn't see where it was going. And I think that's also important to not have, in a career sense, to have these 10-year plans. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing in 10 years in my career, because you're really limiting yourself to what you could be doing. I mean, if I had made a 10-year plan in 2011, it wouldn't have included hardly anything that I'm doing now. And that's a tragedy, because I would have been stuck out of the opportunities that I just kept open. That, you know what, if God opens a door that I have no idea how to walk through, I'm going to walk in faith that this is the right path for me. And I'm going to trust that we have a good God with a good plan, and he's sovereign over this all. I don't think I always realized that until later in life.
Pickle jars. Got to be faithful with the pickle jars, though, or you're not going to get to the Grand Ole Opry in the White House, and right. Yeah. But I think the balance is, you had some of that in your heart, as a young kid, some sense of what God had for you. There's something good about having a sense of an awareness of destiny. So maybe is it perhaps that we have those dreams, but write them in pencil, so that God has veto rights?
You're right. We do, of course. We need to be responsible enough to have dreams and to write them in pencil, like you said. But we need to be aware enough of God's sovereignty that we could pivot at any moment.
Good.
And step completely off of it.
Granger, you're not joking about preaching, bro. I mean, you just got some sauce on that stuff. It's good, because I think that's like the driver's ed. When you're driving, but the driver's ed can at any point, they have a brake, they have their own steering wheel in some case, or maybe not steering wheel, maybe they have a brake over there, right? So it's almost like when you pray, thy will be done, you're saying, here's what I'm asking for, Father. I believe you've got a call in my life for this. I believe maybe this church plant, I believe maybe I'm supposed to, start this company or whatever, but please hold me back if any of it's not your will, or if you have something better for me than I want what you're having,
Absolutely. And if we've given ourselves to Christ, if we've completely surrendered, if we have truly hit our knees and just said, God, your will be done. Lead me, guide me, take me, use me, let me be your servant. If we've truly done that, then I believe he gives us the desires of our heart. And I think so many people confuse that with, he's going to give us what we want. But no, it means he gives us our wants. He creates the desires in us. He creates those passions. And so it's not as complicated as we make it sound when we think, wow, we got to be able to pivot and we got to be looking for God to write something in the clouds. No, you surrender to him, and then you follow your passion. You follow what you love, because he is giving you that passion to follow.
So good. I think that's so great, because I think there can be this false dichotomy of like what humility looks like, where humility means you don't ever aspire for anything great, and I think we should never be afraid of the dream of greatness, because, look at the parable of the talents. If he gave you 10 talents, he wants you to invest them. He wouldn't be honored by you not writing the greatest country song ever, and all those things. But as just as much to where you can also be faithful with the small things and not despise the humble beginnings that is necessary, the pickle jars, et cetera, and all those things. I think it's that they're both true at the same time, and they don't contradict each other.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, totally.
Now, did you ever hear from Mindy's family?
No, I didn't. I hope she was able to walk. I didn't hear from them.
Mindy's family, if you are out there, there was a pickle jar. It was in North Texas. There's a concert that still can happen. All right, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this thing done. If Mindy's family's listening, please call 1-800 pickle jars are us, and we're gonna schedule a show immediately.
I don't think I've ever told that story, so they might hear this.
Bro, that is beautiful. I'm gonna think about that. I mean, and there's gonna be a chapter in a book one day. Pickle jars. That's on the cover. It'll take some explanation. Maybe not a book cover, maybe just a chapter title, a devotional for sure. Definitely a sermon.
Yes.
All right. How about another one of them? Okay. So Back Row Songs comes out. Now, let me ask you this. Was there a disorienting quality to your, becoming internationally known and sought after, and all the Spotify spins. Like, did you find any of that to be disequilibrating?
I diligently reject the mentality of falling into that trap. It's a trap. It really is. People are who they are, and we're all the same. We're all human, regardless of our job. And so if I have a job that's a country music singer, and you have a job as a pastor, we are no different than someone that's stocking the grocery store shelves. We have to keep people around us. And I think I've always worked so hard to keep people around me that are not yes men. So everyone around me could knock me down and drag me through the dirt and tell me what they really think about me straight to my face. My brother is my manager. So you can imagine how that is when your brother is the guy that's in charge of your career. And he'll just tell me straight up, like, man, you're wrong about this. Wow. You're being weird about this. And I know so many artists that will hire a big manager that just wants to lift them up constantly. And it's to their detriment constantly. So yeah, I try to answer your question correctly. Time management always became a big deal during the international tour stuff. Is understanding that I have to be diligent about being a dad and being a father, being a son and a brother. That has to be the priority above the next radio call or the next tour date or album that we're making, and carving that out, because everything seems so important in the moment when it comes to a career. Like, oh, this next thing, this is the biggest thing. You have to give everything to it. But then you step away 5 years and you go, that was just a Jenga block.
Wow. Well, where did you learn that? Because, that's not intuitive necessarily. A lot of people have to get there the hard way. And I'm sure there were, as you look back, even some things you had to bump into before you kind of had that epiphany. But it sounds like, you're very grounded. Is that your upbringing? Is that... I would have to give credit to my mom and dad for constantly keeping me grounded. They were great. They always supported me in whatever I did, which is just a great gift that you can give to a child. But they also kept me accountable, and they kept me grounded through all of it. And I didn't want to disappoint them in that way. And so that was always a big deal to me. When you first told them, hey, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you have your guitar, you're 14. Did you tell your parents, like, hey, I'm going to be a rock star? Like, was there any of this moment of like, this is what I'm going to do with my career? Or was it something you just kind of like had that running in the background in your heart? It was a slow process. As you could imagine, if you're the fourth or fifth best out of the six, then they're like, sure, no one's really going to believe you. Yeah. But the passion developed over the years. It developed, and I loved it. I felt connected to the music and to performing, and I was always wanting to make it better, and always wanting to listen back and come back with a better idea than I had last time. And I was always listening to show tapes. I would play a concert and record it, and then always listen back to it, and just try to find all the things that I liked that I did and do that more. And the things that I didn't like, do it less. The honing of the craft. So it wasn't like you just relied on a gift. You really, you put the hours in. I did. Did they see that and recognize that? I guess I'm wondering, or was it like, I have a friend who, she told her dad, he took her to a Broadway play. She said, I'm going to be on that play one day. And he said, you and every other girl who's ever seen this play, honey. He said basically, and now she is in that role. But her dad wasn't being mean. He was just trying to kind of temper her expectations that's very normal to see that and think, I'm going to be the trainer with Free Willy, when I go to SeaWorld. I'm going to be in Cinderella when I go to Disneyland, how are your parents on that spectrum of responding to your aspirations of musical greatness? They were very supportive, and they wanted me to
be able to realize that dream. And they also would instill the best they could in me, the idea that I had to work for it. This was a path. I couldn't be lazy about it. I had to write the right songs with the right people, and I had to continually do it over and over again. And so they were very supportive. Actually, when I started first seeing success in on stage and in terms of having people come, and pack in
proof of concept.
Proof of concept. I could just see it with my mom and dad, especially with my dad. My moms they just kind of love when just everything you do, but Dad saw the struggle, and he saw how hard not only me but my team, my brother, my band worked. And so when we started seeing the fruits of that, he was just beside himself. He was so happy, and we actually lost him to a heart attack in 2014 before I got the record deal. And so he never saw it. He never saw Backroad Song. He never saw, any of the big stages, but he saw the beginning of it, and he always had that vision. And so I think about that all the time.
Wow. So he sounds like a great man. He complimented the right things, not what came easy to you, but what didn't come easy. He picked the part of it that you had something to say about.
He was always waiting on that phone call the next morning to hear how the show went, how'd it go. And I want to know every detail. He loved that.
What did your dad do for work?
He was in we were in Dallas, and he was in a computer consulting company, and then got kind of forced out of that company early and got into cattle ranching, which was his dream, was to raise cattle. And so he got a ranch in Central Texas, and that's what he was doing when he died.
He went to work for the Sixes.
Yeah, exactly.
That is funny. So he went from computers to cows. That's amazing. What a good man. And how, if you don't mind me delving into what is obviously a hard subject, because my dad had a heart attack when I was in my early 20s, and triple bypass, and came through it. And it shook me to the core, Granger. I mean, I remember, I'll never forget the adrenalized flight across country to be at his side before surgery, and thinking he texted me from the ambulance thinking I was going to lose him. And I can't apologize enough that you've had to face that, but that shaped me as a man and as a father. I can't imagine that's not a developmental seismic shift for you in your journey.
Oh yeah, that's a top 3 moment for me. Dad, we didn't see it coming. We probably should have, but he just didn't go to the doctor enough, but it came out of nowhere. We buried him on his 62nd birthday. And Mom was visiting Amber and I, and we just had our son Lincoln. So Lincoln was 3 months old, and Mom was visiting my daughter London, my son Lincoln, and she was coming all the time as grandma. And she went home that night and found him in his chair, and he was just like he was sleeping. And so we don't know. He was by himself. We don't know. I could assume that it wasn't painful just by his, the way that he was sitting in the chair, and he seemed like he was in peace. Mom called me and said, "Are you with the family?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Your dad had a heart attack," and then right there, it's like pause, it's like a million things running through my mind. And then she said, "And he died." And it was like closing the book. It was like the end of the book is closed, and there's nothing I could say or do about it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, or whats. That's it. That's the end. And I had to then call my middle brother Tyler. He lived close, and I said, "Can you come over?" And I had to tell him. And then I called my youngest brother Parker, who was in college. And he works with me to this day, but we all work together now. And I called him, and he was in the drive-thru at Whataburger. And I said, "Are you with friends?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you mind calling me back when you get away from them?" And he said, "Sure." And he hung up, and I just waited for him to call me. And in that moment, I just thought, right now, for Parker, Dad's still alive. Until I tell him This is the reality for Parker. He still has dad. He was 21 years old, so young, and I was 13 years older than Parker. So I've just felt like I've had so much more of dad, and here's Parker, and I just a million thoughts went through my head about Parker before he called, and I had to deliver the hardest news you could say to a brother.
It's a lot. And that's so beautiful, all of it. Jordan Peterson said something about we should all strive to be the strongest men at our dad's funeral we can be. And I think that's
for life.
That's that season of life thing and that passing of a baton thing. And I mean, you let your brother have a hamburger where he still in his mind and heart had a father on this earth. And to be the one to give that news out, that can't not shape you as a human being. And certainly with your own daughter there in your arms, I mean, just to think about that and then to live on in the light of all your dad gave you and shaped you. Wow.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's a top 3 moment. And I still think about it, but Levi, what that gave me moving forward, it's unbelievable what you could have when you've been through that, how you could talk to other people that have been through a similar situation. And it changed everything with my meet and greets, because I couldn't really relate to someone at a meet and greet that said, I just lost my loved one at the time. But from then on and to this day, Dad, through all his teaching to me, taught me one of the most valuable things, and that's how to grieve.
Oh, man. Yeah, wow. And I imagine it seems like he also was used greatly in developing your faith and in your own personal relationship with God.
He was. Mom and Dad both were instrumental in that. And it's important for me to say that, I was born and raised Christian. My mom read the New Testament to me while she was nursing me. So I was raised in a Christian home, but I wasn't totally reborn until much later than that.
So when did that happen?
That happened after River. And I don't know if it's directly related to River, or if River in that situation opened my heart enough, but it changed me. So yeah, losing my son that's the biggest thing that's changed me. If we're talking about the top 3, it completely reshaped me. Everything I learned from grieving for Dad was put to the test with Riv, and everything I was able to, my ability to speak to others and empathize with others was tenfold with River. And you know this, Levi. Yeah. And after that, after Riv, the Christianity that I had, the religion, it's in that terms, it's a religion. Religion is in terms of a heritage, a tradition, a routine. It's a man-made religion in that terms. But a true, reborn, personal relationship with Jesus is different. Mm-hmm. It's different. You still pray the religious Christian still prays. You still have faith. You still go to church. You still say all the right things. But there's a big difference in the total surrender. The total surrender. And that happened after River. And like I said, it wasn't directly because of River, but I believe that my heart was so crushed and my spirit was so available that I was able through that months and months after that. And through trying to, I know we're skipping some steps here, but through trying to cope with it with worldly peace and realizing that this worldly peace thing isn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's why Jesus said, I don't give as the world gives
Right,
peace. You know, it's very different. And I didn't understand that until then, until I was ready.
I mean, as far as a before after moment can go, I mean, I'm so sorry that you and Amber had to face that. And I'm also so full of hope thinking about you guys being reunited with River in heaven. And I mean, I think that there's not much more in life you can go through that would make you want to or be willing to rip your own heart out of your chest, you know, than what we would do for our kids and facing that. But it seems like what a gift River was able to give you in that being the thing that drew you to Jesus.
Yeah. And I know he has opened a lot of people's eyes to Jesus. And I being the first probably. But it's, you know, I like to say it's so important for me to say that this is coming from a guy that was a Christian, a self-proclaimed Christian, a church-going Christian. That's who I was. And that wasn't enough. And that's not what sustained me. That idea didn't sustain me. Going to church and saying those words didn't sustain me through that kind of grief.
The difference between being a cultural Christian, but like you said, having that relationship with Jesus and having him, the risen Christ, alive inside your heart, shining, you know, with his eyes bright like the sun as you read about him in Revelation, coming back, having that power inside of you, that's a different thing. It's like getting hit by a train. You know, it's gonna leave a mark, you know, and being
That's right.
having a Bible, knowing a couple verses, you know, going on Easter and Christmas, that's different than, you know, having enthroned the one who created the cosmos inside your soul, you know?
So right. That is absolutely right.
Now, I mean, you're 3 years into the grief journey, into walking,
Yes.
right? Or is it, 3 years now,
It's
right?
3. Yep. 3.
2019. We're just a little bit ahead of you, but still on our own, you know, path through it all. We just hit 9 years since Lindy went home to be with Jesus. And, you know, so if you think about, we both have little ones there. Has it changed like your perception of heaven? Because for us, it's like in our house, it's like heaven might as well be, you know, Cleveland. It's like we're talking about a place that's real. It's tangential. Yeah. It's not tangential. It's like it's a spot that someone we know is there, you know?
Yeah. It's changed my idea of heaven and death and life. All of those things have drastically changed in the way that I view them, and the way that I view mortality, and the way I view our limited time left here for all of us. There's death, mortal death has a way of doing that to us, has a way of opening our eyes for any human, but for a Christian, we see things in a whole new light if we choose to.
Yeah. Gosh, bro. With our kids in grief, that is such a complicated, hard, thorny thing. I think that, you know, as if I could go back and do certain things over again, it probably would have been being more intentional. You know, you do the best you can, but in some ways you're in survival mode. You know, just keeping eating food and putting clothes on each day is such a struggle in grief like that. But then to watch the gift of the, like, I feel like my daughter Olivia, she was 8 when Linya went to heaven. She's like a fine wine. She's so much older than she should be because of the wisdom, I think. And I think that's in some way, you know, that phrase good grief is ironic, of course, in a lot of ways, but there is a goodness to grief that you can experience and see measurable like that. That's a gift from God in that we were allowed to go through that.
It is. And we don't want our children to go through that. We know that, first of all, we know the responsibility it takes as parents, because we see how this breaks a family. We see how this breaks children, and how sometimes they can never recover from it.
Yeah.
And so we don't want them to, but we don't choose things that we want with a sovereign God. And so when it comes to us and this happens, it's all hands on deck. It's all hands on deck to make sure that grief becomes something that they could learn from, and something that they could benefit from, and that the memories of River bring a smile, and that they want to live a life for Jesus. And sometimes that comes because of River. And however that happens, I'm happy with it. But these are, constant discussions, and we're all in grief at different times and different levels. And sometimes Lincoln, they were best buds. And sometimes I think he's just doing great. And most of the time he is. 99% of the time he's great. And then all of a sudden it hits him one night and he's thinking about River and asking questions that are hard to answer. And at those moments, we just have to be with them and be vulnerable with them and let them talk it out. And we'll talk the best we can, admitting that there's some things we just don't know, and that we're so sorry, but we're all in this together.
Bro, it's really huge. And I guarantee you there's listeners. I know we have a lot of in our family and audience that have faced grief and have faced loss and have come, kind of gravitate towards our story and podcast because we do tend to go there and bring in guests who have been there. And that's one of the reasons I just was really excited about having your voice on and your story, because of that bright light in the midst of what is hard. And I know that what you're saying is ringing true for a lot of people. It does for me. And I know, what you're going to face in the coming years with Maverick, even because of Lennox, who never got to meet Linya in this world. So his grief is almost like this inversion of grief, because he's the only member of our family who's not in on the jokes. He's 4 now, so he's starting to get it. He knows who Linya is. He sees the pictures. He understands he has a sister, but never got to meet her. So almost there's in some way this negative space grief because he doesn't have that. And so it's almost like we're having to shepherd him through that unique situation, which will be Maverick's, sort of cross to bear, that his grief is almost like a backwards grief from everybody else's.
That's so interesting. And I'm going to be, as Maverick gets older, I'm going to be leaning on you on that, because you'll be, 4 years ahead of me on it. But it's interesting. What we learned through this too is that we don't get to pick how our life finalizes in any situation. So Amber and I no longer say our forever home. We used to say that. We used to say that about the house. This is the house we're going to live in forever. Now, of course, as Christians, we know that's wrong on many levels, but from a dream home perspective, we don't think that anymore. We used to say, River's the caboose. He's the last child in this family. We're complete now. We are a complete family. And it's so interesting that God had a different plan. And to know that we were finished, we thought we were finished with our family. And then to know that the miracle of Maverick is just a whole story in itself of how that came about and why it came about and the miracle it took for him to be born. And then I just think, God, what do you have in store for him? Like what for a life like Maverick to be here because his older brother isn't, is a concept that I might never truly be able to unpack in my life. But it weighs heavy on me. And every time I look in his eyes and I see River in his eyes, I see River in his little face, and I just think, God, give me the strength to raise this child and the other two with him for your purpose, because it matters. It's something way out of my control and way beyond what I could understand why this child is here and another one is not. But give me the wisdom and the strength to do this right.
Bro. Well, my prayer would be just continually, someone prophesied over our home in a really low moment that God would continue to use Lennox's laughter to wash away the residue of grief from our hearts. And we've watched that prophecy so fulfilled. And I'll think of and pray and believe that will continue to be Maverick's laugh in your home. And in some ironic way, Maverick and Lennox, who know Linya and River on this earth less than their siblings, in some small way, they know them more because identical setup. We would not have Lennox. There was no way God, barring a miracle, that he would exist because we were done, and God saw fit. And so I think that's one of those things where it's like the secret things belong to the Lord, where you're like, I'm just going to let the roar of a waterfall and the beauty of a sunset and just be enough for that. Cause I don't get it. That's not much above my pay grade. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. There's just things we can't possibly begin to understand. And as I get older, I just realize I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I love that. I love that. I love the journey of life. I love being more comfortable. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and being willing to go there. You know, I know that's a tender subject and yet one that, again, that's the backside of our moons. And the more we expose those things and be willing to swing those around and not keep them out of sight, but let the asteroid streaked landscape be seen. So I thank you for that.
Well, brother, thank you. Love what you do. Love your work. You know, Through the Eyes of a Lion was a big deal for Amber and I. And so, it's an honor to be on the podcast. And I hope this is the beginning of a good relationship with us.
Absolutely. I do want to take a moment and talk about a couple things. First of all, you have been moonlighting, pun intended, as a radio DJ running a show called After Midnight on iHeartRadio and heard on 200 radio stations coast to coast. People can go to aftermidnight.com and listen to Granger, DJ Spinster, throw down from 12 to 5 a.m. doing the third shift all across the country. What has that been like?
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, it's pre-recorded, as people probably be already thinking, like, how does he stay up all night? No, it's
You're like,
pre-recorded.
well, we're between breastfeeding and all the things. It is what it is, yeah.
Right, it is what it is. This is something that just put this in my lap. And this kind of opportunity. I don't have a background in broadcasting or anything like that. I had a relationship with the people at iHeart, and they contacted me and we said, we have a job for you and we just want you to take it. And I just thought, you know what? That's a vulnerable time for people. And I just thought, God, if this is where you need me to be, it feels like it's just got God's fingerprints all over it for me to be able to step into this position. And I told iHeart, we had a big conference call, and I said, are there any conflicts in my life with this show? And they said, no, don't think so. I said, anything you could think of? No. I said, okay, I talk about my faith all the time. On my podcast, on my social media, I'm very vocal about my faith. And they said, yeah. You're when we think of you, we think of family, faith, outdoors, and that's just kind of our demographic. So you could run with it. And I just thought, all right, God, this is interesting. This is interesting because you don't think of a big pop media company these days and going this direction and bringing a conservative Christian married man. You just don't think of that. And so I felt like, God, you have your fingerprints all over this, and I'm going to take this in stride and use it for your kingdom and try to be spirit driven with it, and knowing that I could speak into people during a very vulnerable time of their life.
That's amazing. So aftermidnight.com, does Earl Gerbils Jr. ever show up, or is he not invited?
Yeah, Earl does make an appearance every once in a while. And Earl finds his way into most things in my life. Yes.
Very good. Well, we would expect it to be so. As well, real quickly, want to mention you are about to begin production on a movie, wait for it, friends and family, called Moonrise.
Yes. Levi, we have a lot of connections, me and you.
Bro,
strange connections.
This is destined to happen.
Yeah.
And you play a country music star.
Yeah, country music star, and his wife dies, and he has 3 kids. He goes through 2 years of grief, and he quits music, and he doesn't have a footing on life. And his wife dies on a horse. And so that horse, the daughter, who's now 14, wants to ride this horse. And so the country music singer does not want her to ride the horse. In fact, he wants to sell the horse. He wants to get rid of it. And so it's this journey through the horse and through the daughter with this guy, this country guy, on his journey back to the stage and understanding life again.
Bro, well, I can't wait to see that. Have you started memorizing your script yet? Or is that?
People are telling me that that's probably something I should do. So I better get on that.
Got to get around to that. Write it on some Post-it notes,
Right.
some cue cards.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And you've never acted before? I mean, you've done your music videos and stuff. Is this your first acting foray?
Yeah, first time to do anything like this at all. Besides music videos and short skits, this is the first time. So I'm going to be new to it all.
Well, the movie's Moonrise. Can't wait to see that. And we'll catch you on aftermidnight.com. Granger, thank you for coming on today. This was really a treat.
Thank you, brother. And we'll see you soon, man. Thanks for having me on.
We'll bring our better halves. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. And be sure to swing by levilusko.com to see what's going on in our world, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. In the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media. Jennie and Levi Lusko, out.